The gospel of Jesus Christ is all about this and about nothing else. It is that Jesus lived, and Jesus died, and Jesus was raised. Period. Last week we had Jesus setting his face toward Jerusalem. And why? Because setting his face toward Jerusalem meant Jesus realized that the cost of salvation was his death. Period. You know, as nice as miracles are, feeding 5,000 hungry people, healing the desperately sick, calling back to life a beloved daughter, they really don't have anything to do with salvation. So Jesus sets his face toward Jerusalem because Jerusalem has rejected this form of salvation already. He has been rejected because he doesn't measure up to their expectations of the Messiah, their expectations of salvation. So if you remember last week's lesson, Jesus is rejected in a Samaritan village because he doesn't measure up to their expectations of the Messiah and salvation either, because no Messiah would ever walk toward his death. So no salvation can be based on losing. So the disciples of Jesus want to bring down fire on the Samaritans. In other words, the disciples of the Messiah, who has been rejected in Jerusalem and in Samaria, want to settle the score. They want to revise God's plan of salvation, the salvation of the God whose face is now very determinedly pointed toward Jerusalem. But ultimately, salvation is not about settling scores. It's not about getting ahead. It's not about getting even. So what is it about? Last week, the disciples so missed the point that they actually wanted to bring down fire on someone else who also missed the point. So as Jesus is walking toward Jerusalem, he sends 72 ahead of him to all the towns and villages he plans to go by. And why does he do that? So that his disciples might learn what his mission is all about for themselves. And just what is his mission? Well, my first thought is it's going out and telling people. But exactly what are we telling them? We're going to be telling them, we should be telling them, that the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ has secured their salvation. It has secured their salvation, yes. But more than securing it, the death and resurrection of Jesus Christ has indeed guaranteed it. And the guarantee is what we celebrate every Sunday. Anything else is bad news. Salvation from Jesus Christ is guaranteed. You've heard this phrase, guaranteed. How many of you listening to the average Sunday sermon believe that your salvation is actually guaranteed? Do you actually believe it? But a point of order. In relation to the good news, Jesus died for us, and for murderers, and adulterers, and drunks, and gossips, and slanderers. The list goes on. But their salvation is guaranteed too. So again, how many of you listening to the average Sunday sermon actually believe Jesus died to guarantee your salvation? How many of you actually believe Jesus died for all the scoundrels in the world? So if you truly believe that, then who would you exclude? Those who live in Jerusalem? Those who live in Samaria? Your next door neighbor? Your sister-in-law? The rotten kid down the block? Either it is good news for everyone, or it's not good news. Our salvation, yours and mine and everyone's salvation, is guaranteed. Jesus Christ did it all. There is nothing you need to add. There's nothing you can add. It is complete. Jesus died. God raised him. It is all done. Period. Now, the conservative wing of the Lutheran Church would say in that sentence, I have cheapened Jesus Christ. Only I don't understand that. because what I've said is that Jesus is the only thing that is important. I have only said that finally and fully Jesus saves all people that anyone could ever enter, the good and the bad and the ugly. And it's not cheap Jesus. It's the most precious Jesus imaginable. In today's text, Jesus sends out the 72. Having fully missed the point by wanting to call down fire on the Samaritans, Jesus nevertheless wants the disciples to experience what it is like to be Jesus. He wants them to turn their faces toward Jerusalem, toward death, and not toward their desire for acceptance or their fear of rejection. And so today's text begs the question, does acceptance or rejection of the good news have anything to do with salvation? Jesus' disciples come back from this experience jubilant, saying, Lord, in your name even the demons submit to us. And Jesus replies to them, do not rejoice at this, that the spirits submit to you, but rejoice that your names are written in heaven. So salvation has absolutely nothing to do with acceptance or rejection. Jesus understands this. He wants his disciples to understand this. It is recorded in the Bible so that you and I can understand this. Salvation has nothing to do with acceptance or rejection or authority over demons. What it has to do with is Jesus and his life and his death and his resurrection. So tell me, can you think of anything more important than this? That Jesus lived, that Jesus died, that Jesus was raised from the dead, and that because of this, our salvation is guaranteed. So maybe together let's try to think of anything more important than this. Last week we heard in the lesson, Lord, I'll follow you, but let me go home and bury my father. And Jesus said, let the dead bury their own dead. And another one said, Lord, I will follow you, but let me go say farewell to those in my home. And Jesus said, no one who puts his hand to the plow and then looks back is fit for the kingdom of God. So I'm going to commission you. You're like the original 72. So as a called and ordained minister of the Church of Christ, I appoint each and every one of you to go out and spread the good news. And just so that you're not confused, keep this in mind. This is the gospel. Jesus lived. Jesus died. Jesus was raised. Period. Jesus sent out the 72 so that they could come back and say what? That they had power, authority, that they were right, that they could take care of their income tax, their monthly budget, and all their relationships to boot? No, Jesus said, rejoice only that your names are written in heaven. So Jesus sets his face toward Jerusalem, toward his death, and he sends out the 72 ahead of him. And it brings us back to the question, what is more important than that Jesus lived, Jesus died, and Jesus was raised to guarantee our salvation? In case you missed it the first time, let me say it again. Today's gospel lesson is an object lesson. It is about you owning this particular passage. So let's say it all again. Say it with me. Jesus lived. Jesus died. Jesus was raised to guarantee our salvation. Period. And you know, as nice as miracles are, like healing the lepers and walking on water and raising the dead, they really don't have anything to do with salvation. Jesus sets his face toward Jerusalem because Jerusalem has already rejected this form of messiahship. He has been rejected because he doesn't measure up to their expectations of the Messiah, of their expectations of salvation. But you know, Jesus is rejected everywhere, by everyone, even by us at times, because he doesn't measure up to our expectations of the Messiah and salvation either. because no Messiah would ever walk towards his death. No salvation can be based on losing. By his life and death and resurrection, Christ has indeed guaranteed our salvation. And the guarantee is what we celebrate every Sunday. And anything else is bad news. Our salvation, yours and mine, and all the scoundrels of the world, is guaranteed. Jesus Christ did it all, and there is nothing you need to add or even can add. It is complete. Jesus lived. Jesus died. Jesus was raised to guarantee our salvation. And this is the only thing that is important. Jesus saves all the people anyone could ever mention, saints and sinners alike. It is the most precious Jesus that we could ever imagine. Jesus tells us, even in the midst of our victories, do not rejoice in these things. Rejoice that your name is written in heaven. And understand this, salvation has nothing to do with acceptance or rejection or authority over demons. Salvation has to do with this. Say it with me again. Jesus lived. Jesus died. Jesus was raised to guarantee our salvation. So I appoint each and every one of you to go out and spread the good news. Maybe tell me about it next week. And just so that you're not confused, one more time. Jesus lived. Jesus died. Jesus was raised to guarantee our salvation. Is there anything more important than that your names are written in heaven?